I went from complete beginner to having a community of over 10,000 people that like my AI workflows. That's why I want to share with you today 10 of the most common mistakes that I was doing at the beginning and that I saw other people doing too, that once I mastered, allow me to control every single output that I get. So, mistake number one is not controlling the complexity of the vocabulary. The reason for this is that because of the training data that most models use, especially ChatGPT, if you don't use the right instruction, it will sound like what most people call sounding robotic. And one way to fix this is by controlling the tone of voice and the reading level. For example, if you give a book to a kid that is in a kindergarten versus if you give a book to a student that is in college, you know that the vocabulary in that book will be way harder. Or in my case, my native language is Spanish. So when I was learning English, others always told me to read books for kids or to watch cartoons, just because the language, of course, is easier to understand. And for social media, the best reading level is between 3rd grade and 5th grade. And you will even see some big YouTubers like Mr. Beast reminding you that you need to be between this range. Now, to do it in ChatGPT automatically, all you need to do is to use an instruction like this. And I start by saying, simplify the vocabulary of the content, and you see that I have content in capital letters, because at the end of the instruction, I'm also putting content equals, and in that space, I'm gonna paste the content. I like to do this just to keep the prompt clean. But going back, it says, simplify the vocabulary of the content to have a reading level of 3rd grade. After that, I give some examples of replacements, like instead of saying leverage, use. Instead of saying competences, skills. Instead of saying sufficient, enough. And take this as an extra tip, because when you use examples, you're saying this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. So you reinforce the instructions and you make the prompt more stable. And in this case, the prompt is small, but if you have something that is way more complex and long, then this will be a game changer. And if you want to see that I'm not just throwing this away, but it actually works, you can go to this website. It's called Hemingway, and the purpose of this is to tell you the reading level. And in the left, you can see the piece of content that ChatGPT gave me without using this prompt. And in the right side, the piece of content that I got by using this prompt. This can be easy, but really makes a huge difference. Now, mistake number two, that it's related to the first one, is to don't control the voice of tone. So to make AI sound like you need to use data compression. And the best way to do this is by using personas to explain a full profile. And what I was doing at the beginning was to use keywords like casual voice of tone or friendly voice of tone. But sometimes I was kind of disappointed because it was like, hi there, let me explain to you the wonders of this thing. It just felt a little bit forced. So what I noticed, and this was a tip that I learned from someone else, is that you can generate a more natural voice of tone if you say something like, generate your outputs writing like a friendly mate, or generate your outputs writing like a trusted friend. And these are personas. A bad example of these could be generate your outputs writing like a corporate professional, because that's not a good voice of tone for social media. So when someone says, make AI sound like you, this is usually what they mean. Now, mistake number three is to keep the fluff. Because when ChatGPT, for example, doesn't have a good context, it will try to guess things to fill the blanks. But let's not only blame AI, because we also do this when we start to write. It's pretty common to see someone making a mistake of adding double descriptions. For example, she has long and extended hair, or it was a bright and sunny day. It's not necessary, but it's part of what we might believe that is correct. I recently saw a meme that was comparing the school versus reality, and it said, what school told you? Your paper, your homework must be a minimum of 5 pages long. However, in real life, because people are busy, or in social media, what happens is that they tell you, explain this to me in 7 seconds or I'm out of here. This is literally why copywriters can be paid a big amount of money to write a landing page to increase the sales. That is only what you see in your screen. So to take advantage of the power of simplicity, you can refine your outputs writing something like this, where you say, remove the fluff, make this 1% shorter, while maintaining the same meaning. And my favorite part of this is that you can play with the percentage. So instead of saying 1%, you can say 10%, 5%, and in that way you control if you want to be more or less concise. Now, mistake number 4, not using the memory. This one, I would say that is a new feature because a lot of people don't know how to use it yet. But if you go to your settings and personalization in ChatGPT, you will find the memory that it uses across every single conversation. To add new things here, all you need to do is to say something like, ChatGPT, remember this, and then you explain the thing that you want it to remember. So if we use the example of cut the fluff, it'll be something like, remember this, every time I write 10%, remove the fluff, and make the text 10% shorter while maintaining the same meaning. And you can notice that here, I'm also putting 2 dots in front of the 10% because if I have any random text that includes the 10% inside, it might trigger by accident the instruction. So with the 2 dots, I'm actually making sure that I'm typing this intentionally. But that's it. And now you can have the benefits of the prompt without writing the full instruction. And by the way, leave a like if you're finding this useful. I really wish someone had told me all of these things before. And now moving to mistake number 5, this is about keeping the trashy vocabulary, because one of the most common problems with ChatGPT is the type of words that it uses. And most people that have experience with AI or with content, they will say, oh my god, this sounds like AI. To fix this, you can include the examples of the types of words that you never want to include, like dive, mystify, unleash, revolutionize, or discover the secrets to unlock your success with this ultimate and epic guide that will help you to navigate this digital landscape. Do you feel it? I mean, it sounds really, really bad. And for ChatGPT, you actually need to use a prompt like this, but other models like Claude can do these types of things natively. And that's why a lot of people prefer to use Claude instead of ChatGPT for content. But today, we are covering ChatGPT. So mistake number 6 is not knowing how to use the character control. And I'm sure that you have heard this a lot of times because people like to say, be specific. But if you think about it, what does that actually mean? Because you also need to have in mind that you need to be specific in a way that a machine can understand. Of course, a simple way to do this is by using the character control. For example, I create a lot of content on LinkedIn. That's my main platform. And each line of text to optimize for mobile uses less than 60 characters. And I'm not guessing. I literally asked ChatGPT to analyze a post with this in mind. Or if you want to create a 1-minute video, you're not going to say, create a script for a short form video. But you can take something like this graph that explains the average of words that someone uses in 1 minute. I can see that it's around 140 and less than 200. And in this case, words work really good for video, but if you're writing something, it's better to use characters, of course, because some words might be longer than others. And this just allows you to keep things more accurate. Now, mistake number 7 is to use the word please. And there are different opinions about it, but this word is interpreted as a request, which statistically could be refused or confusing. And ChatGPT could be like, do you really want me to do this? Or can I skip it? So this word is not necessary, and the more concise and direct you can be, the better results you will get. Now, mistake number 8 is to take the first result that you get. Because in some cases, the result will be awful and you will not know how to fix it. But what you can do is to write follow-up prompts like, you're not doing what I asked, just fix this part and change this and add this thing. Or if there is a part that you really like, you can say, perfect. Now let's only improve the introduction, the conclusion, the bullet points. Because if you'll take the whole thing, but now you specify the focus, this can give you better results than if you try to fix the whole thing. Other thing that you can do is to edit your instruction or the way that you're describing things. Because sometimes we don't like to admit it and we blame the AI model, but we can be the ones that are making things wrong. And finally, the easiest thing is to simply generate a new answer. But now that we have this covered, let's move to mistake number 9, that is not using voice control and typing instead. And this is because ChatGPT or other models do understand what they need to do, of course. But if you feel like you're spending more time typing, you will be like, oh my god, this is exhausting. So instead of typing, you can use ChatGPT to control the output. And you have different options. For example, if you're using your phone, they already have a microphone integrated into the app natively. Or there is also an app for your computer, but at the moment of recording this video, it's only available for Mac. So if you don't have any of these options, or you are like me and there are some things that you don't really like about the app, you can use a Chrome extension that is called VoiceWave, and this is honestly one of my favorites. And in that way, you don't need to type, you can explain things with more detail, and you can be faster. Now, the next mistake is about mixing topics or tasks, because this can generate a lot of confusion. And that's why it exists the concept of prompt chaining, which is basically just dividing your prompt, your instruction, in steps, and then explaining that one by one. Or if you have a full workflow, say something like, okay, we have 3 stages, let's work on stage 1 first, and then we are going to move to the next one. Because from personal experience, I can tell you that the longer the prompt is, the dumber it can get. So if you master this, I guarantee you that you will have the control over the results that you want to have. And if something goes wrong, you will know how to fix it. But now that you know all of this, if you don't want to keep feeling stuck with knowing the best way of how to use AI for content, for real, subscribe to the channel because I'm always sharing what has been working for me and for my clients in this place. See you in the next one. Bye.